Great. Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody to the launch of Climate Action Leeds. We're really delighted to have you all join us tonight. My name is Andy Goldring, and I'm with Leeds Love It Share It, our Future Leeds, part of the programme and dealing with the City Hub. And I'm going to be joined by Jenni Brooks, who's going to be the co-facilitator for this evening. So over to Jenni.
Hello everybody, it's really exciting to have you all here and to finally get our programme out there into the public. I am the Communication and Engagement Lead for Climate Action Leeds. Fantastic. So we're just going to ask you today if you can introduce yourselves in the chat. Say your name, if you're from an organisation, put that in as well, and where you're calling in from, that would be great.
Great. Okay, and just a word about Zoom etiquette. So we are recording so that other people that can't join us can see what we did. Please put your hand up virtually to speak. We'll do our best to monitor that and make sure that we see who is wanting to come in, but do that virtually. And please introduce yourself in the chat, as Jenni said. And also use that for questions and answers. So later in panel discussion, there'll be opportunity for some questions. So yeah, please use the chat for that aspect. Okay, so I'm going to just say now a little bit about the evening and what we're going to be doing. So we're going to start by setting the scene, some opening address, and we've got three fantastic speakers for that. Then we're going to give a bit of a programme overview. We're going to talk about youth engagement. We're going to tell you a bit about some of the highlights that we've had so far in the project to date. Then we have a panel discussion and breakout groups, which is all about how can we take action in Leeds, given that we are Climate Action Leeds. So very action-orientated discussion. Then we're going to look at ambitions and next steps for this programme, and finish by talking about how you can get involved and how you can help us to make this a really fantastic transformative project. So they are the highlights for this evening. I can assure you it won't be lots of presentation by PowerPoint, but this is hopefully a clear way to just let you know what we're going to be doing. So I think I can stop sharing the screen. And Jenni, I think we're going to be joined by some very special guests as well, aren't we?
Yes, some superhero guests. No spandex involved, honestly. So can I just ask that everyone keep themselves on mute unless you're speaking, just to help us with the audio. Yeah. So obviously a lot of you will be wanting to eat your dinner right now, but I was wondering if we could just do a quick screenshot of everybody first. Obviously you can keep yourselves off camera if you don't want to, and you can change your name if you don't want to be identified. But otherwise, could we have a screenshot? Jenni, are you ready to go with that? Maybe wave or thumbs up. I'm going to do a heart for Leeds Love It, Share It. Okay, can we do a screenshot? 1, 2, 3. Yay!
Fantastic.
So, obviously we'd love this to be an in-person event, but we're not quite there yet. But we'd encourage you throughout to use the reactions. So, you know, do hearts or smiley faces, hopefully not too many sad faces, but just, you know, let yourselves free with the reactions. Simon's already getting in there. And if you're on Twitter and you want to live tweet throughout, we're just using @ClimateActLeeds and #ClimateActionLeeds. If somebody could put that in the chat for people. And just to say that this is the first of a full programme of events across this week that we're really excited. Some are out in the community, some are at our sector settings. So check out the website.
So we've just added the website to the chat. And yeah, just to restate, there's a lot of really great stuff happening all week. And please do join us for some of those. And I think maybe the last thing to say, given it's 6 minutes past 6, is that one of the hardest jobs that Jenni and myself are going to have to do today is to keep us to time. We do have a very packed agenda. we've all got so much to say, and we've got some really fantastic speakers. We don't want to stop anybody, but we will keep us moving along, just because we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak, and also we want to finish promptly at 8 o'clock, because we understand that you'll have other things you'd like to do. So please don't view us badly if we say just another couple of minutes to go. Please wrap up.
Okay, so I'm going to have to wrap you up for that bit, Andy.
Okay.
Without further ado, can I pass over to Nick Kroll, who we're very excited to be here from the National Lottery's Climate Action Fund, because it's the lottery funding that has enabled this whole programme, and he is going to be followed by Clarrie Ramsden, who is here representing the Seacroft Climate Action Hub, which is also a massively important hub plank of our programme. So over to Nick and Clarrie, please. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, so I'm Nick. I'm from the National Lottery Community Fund. We're one of the 12 distributors of money raised from National Lottery players. I think we're probably the largest funder of community activity in the UK. Since 2004, we've given out around £9 billion. In the last year, about 500 million to around 1,200 projects right across the UK and also internationally. One of the things that we've been promoting a lot recently is our environmental strategy. So it comes in 3 kind of strands. One, we're looking at ourselves, our buildings, our travel, everything we as an organisation do to try and reduce our carbon footprint. Secondly, we're looking at all the projects we've funded in the past. We're sort of working with them to help reduce their carbon footprint, giving some top-up grants from that. And then the third one, and the reason we're here today, is our Climate Action Fund, which is a 10-year, £100 million programme to support community groups to help bring back climate action, help reduce their footprint in their local areas. And 600 applications, but we were only actually able to fund 23. Balance of themes: community transport, community energy, food, composting, consumption thing, Northern Ireland, England and Wales, and also between sort of urban areas, rural areas, coastal areas. So that was the sort of balance we're looking for. And one of the 23 that was awarded funding was this Leeds project. It was possibly the biggest grant of all. It was around £2.5 million. And I think particularly the city area, we really like the partnership, with a cross-sector partnership, support from the council, academics, community groups, and also particularly like the model of working in different neighbourhood hubs from different demographic areas across the city and across the wider region. So that was kind of what really appealed to us, and what we've seen so far, it looks really, really good. And then the idea is that this project will then link up with some of the other projects around the country, maybe there's a rural coastal projects, and there'll be opportunities to share learning. So that's kind of very, very brief introduction into the sort of Climate Action Fund.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Nick. So let's move to
Clarrie.
Clarrie.
Hey up, everybody, we're all right. Right, so
Great,
I'm
thank you,
here
Clarrie.
from Seacroft, part of the Seacroft Climate Action Group. How did I get involved? Good question. About 2 or 3 years ago, one of my friends for my birthday sent me a little packet with about 6 sunflower seeds in it. And on it she wrote, "Here's the promise of a brighter tomorrow." So when Climate Action Seacroft came along, I thought, do you know what, that links really well with it. So we're a really diverse group of people across Seacroft, which is a very, very interesting place. And we're starting to grow a community together. So far we've done all sorts of weird and wonderful things. We've distributed 1,700 packets of sunflower seeds across Seacroft. So under the banner of sunflowers for Seacroft, so they're popping up all over the place, which is lovely. We're starting to develop a forest garden just off South Parkway with the community. We've got an allotment at Killingbeck and a orchard as well. Now, you might say, why Killingbeck? Well, because A, it was there, and B, it's 500 yards from Seacroft. And it's gorgeous. We've got a compost toilet, which is really important. We've got 2 raised beds, a polytunnel, a pizza oven, which is amazing. So we've already had involvement with young people coming up to use the pizza oven there. We've had young people working with us through the Cubs, where we've had a couple of members going to talk about climate action, taking them out wombling, picking up litter, and all sorts of stuff. We're hoping to develop the allotment, so we're working with some mental health charities to actually bring clients down. We've had one down already, which was really successful. We're partnershiping with Leeds 14 Trust, with C2P, Chapel FM. We've got seed and plant banks in the library, Chapel FM, and at the Kent Near Centre. Other things we're working on are things like gifting not costing the earth. So looking towards Christmas, what we do in our own homes, in our own lives. So we're supporting the environment and yet giving nice gifts as well. And possibly an idea we're just toying with at the moment is some kind of crafternoon where, as well as doing some bit of crafting, we're actually learning about different trees and things like that. So it's a really exciting place. I've made some amazing friends already. And the most important thing is the kettle. Okay, I think that's probably enough from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarrie. And we have a video now because Alex Sobel, MP for Leeds North West, was intending to be here but hasn't been able to, so we have a video to play.
Hello, sorry that I'm not with you. I've just been to the pre-COP meeting in Rome and I was expecting to be back, but one of the things about long distance train travel is that sometimes things go wrong, and I'm in Frankfurt train station because my train between Frankfurt and Brussels has been cancelled, and by the time I get to Brussels I won't be able to get back in time to speak to you directly. However, I just want to talk to you about some of the themes you're talking about tonight. Having just been to the pre-COP meeting with hundreds of other parliamentarians, all the themes you're talking about tonight are right at the top of our agenda and the global agenda. What's happening and what will happen at COP is that the targets, the ambition will be ratcheted up. The national development contributions are being increased, but the real issue now is delivery. There's a real concern that the promises made won't be kept. And so there's 2 things really. One is obviously we need action at governmental level to unlock this, but we need local delivery and also local activism. So the work that you're doing around whether it's local energy networks, whether it's around low carbon housing and cooperative housing, whether it's around local food and food sustainability, are all really important, as well as the activism and pushing and ensuring that what we promise to deliver we will get to deliver, so we can keep a habitable planet. We are really, in the words, you know, of everyone now, it's code red. The IPPC said it's code red. It's time for action, no time to waste. And so we all need to be ramping up our activity. And so I'm so pleased that this is launching today.
Great. Well, that's really fantastic to have that message from Alex. And I'm sure we share his concern and his drive. And Alex is a fantastic MP that really puts a lot in. And we've got 3 people now that also put a lot in and have got a lot of drive. And we're joined by, so we're going to be joined by Paul Chatterton, who was one of the founders of our Future Leeds and a real driving force. We've got Pete Tatham from Hyde Park Source, which is a fantastic project, does a lot of work in Seacroft and East Leeds. And we've got Marvin Newton and Shannon Jackson, who are an absolute dynamic duo for youth engagement and for changing the city with activism. So really excited to have all of those speakers now, and I shall pass over to Paul.
Super, thanks very much. And in the slide pack, this is really about introducing the programme ambition. So we've set ourselves this decade-long challenge, in Leeds, as the world has, to really embark upon this zero carbon, nature-friendly, socially just city. Yeah. And the exciting thing is we know we can do it because we've got this multi-sector partnership together. So we're really going to focus on what this 10-year opportunity and challenge means for the city. And I want to tell you a little bit about how the programme works. And wonderfully tonight, you don't have to listen to me. We've enlisted the help of some of our superheroes, climate action superheroes, who are going to tell us just as it is. So Simon, I'd like you to share the video of our Climate Action Leeds superheroes who are going to introduce the programme to us.
So, I've been hearing about this climate emergency.
Yeah, and it's not only that, there is a social and nature emergency too.
Oh crikey, that feels overwhelming. I've heard leading international scientists say that if we don't make some really big changes in about 10 years, there'll be some really dangerous impacts on our climate that will affect all our lives.
Yeah, that's right. We have to make some huge changes in Leeds. I read in a report by the Leeds Climate Commission that every year we produce about 4 million tonnes of greenhouse gases. We have to get these to about zero sometime in the 2030s.
Gosh, that's huge. It really does all feel very overwhelming. What can we do?
Don't panic or feel overwhelmed. There's lots we can do. I've just heard about this cool bunch of people called Climate Action Leeds.
Whoa, okay. Tell me more. What are they up to?
They have just got a whole load of cash from the National Lottery's Climate Action programme to spend 5 years building a movement in Leeds. They are basically taking the climate emergency seriously and demanding urgent transformative action. The whole thing is community-led. They are supporting communities getting involved in positive climate action across the city.
That sounds brilliant. What can I get involved with?
Well, for starters, they are setting up climate action hubs all over Leeds, and they are supporting communities to create a local climate action plan so people can take action in their local neighbourhoods.
That's great. And how are these communities going to collect up and learn from each other?
Well, that's the great bit. They have got these transition partners who are focusing on areas like work, food, the economy, nature, education and transport to share learning and pass on skills on how to make changes in these areas. And they have got a climate justice partner, so the programme really centralises frontline communities that are most affected by climate change.
Nice. They really seem to have got the basic idea that climate action must go hand in hand with social justice. It feels like they're going to share some brilliant insights and support people in amazing ways.
And it doesn't end there either. They are going to take all these climate plans made by communities and the transition partners and put them together in one big whopping great city plan. This plan is really exciting as it will lay down how Leeds could become a zero carbon, nature friendly, socially just place by the 2030s. They are even using the work of this Oxford University economist Kate Raworth and her idea of donut economics. They are creating this Leeds donut which shows how everyone can live safely and happily in Leeds.
Amazing. It just gets better. Leeds sounds like the kind of place I want to go and live.
Doesn't it just? And those amazing people at Climate Action Leeds are setting up a whole training programme so people can understand what the climate emergency is all about and how to make Leeds zero carbon in a socially just way.
Cool. It really sounds like they've thought about this a lot.
Yeah, they have also got this theory of change, which is basically about how they see change happening.
Nice one. Tell me more.
Basically, they've got it down to 3 things. First, they say we've got to learn about the challenges we face and new ways of acting and seeing the world. But we've also got to unlearn bad habits and the ways that we tend to dominate each other.
I can see how that's really useful.
Yeah, and then second, they say we've got to go on and use its learning to make sure that we then go on to act and build loads of cool alternatives like community food growing projects, local renewables, active travel neighbourhoods, cooperatives and community-led housing.
Whoa, it just gets better.
And then third, they say we've also got to do our bit to resist and push back. It's no good building all these amazing projects if they just get crushed by people and organisations who are harming us.
So, in a nutshell, how they see change is to learn, build alternatives and resist.
Yeah, that's it. And all this is guided by a bunch of values and principles including putting social justice at the heart, going into emergency mode, showing solidarity, building a movement, confronting power, giving power to the people in communities, listening and prioritising safety.
I'm convinced. Who's behind it then?
Some really cool organisations in Leeds, including Voluntary Action Leeds, Together the Peace, Leeds Tidal and Leeds Love It, Share It. This really ace network of citizens responding to the climate emergency called Our Future Leeds brought them all together and act as an overall strategic guide. They have also got this London-based organisation called CAG Consultancy who are evaluating and learning from their activities.
So, how can I get involved?
Well, they're already supporting communities in Garforth, Seacroft, Beeston and Otley. You can check out their website for starters at climateactionleeds.org.uk, or you can email them at hello@climateactionleeds.org.uk.
Brilliant.
And twice a year they are going to have a big climate assembly bringing anyone and everyone together in Leeds who wants to create a zero carbon, nature friendly, socially just city by the 2030s.
Nice one. There's already so much brilliant stuff happening in Leeds, with the Leeds Youth Strike, Extinction Rebellion, the Leeds Climate Commission, the City Council's Climate Emergency Advisory Committee.
And now Climate Action Leeds too.
That's amazing. And now I feel totally inspired and hopeful.
Me too.
And me!
Me too!
Right, let's hear it for the Climate Action Leeds superheroes! Yeah. So look, they're going to be popping up all over Leeds at different places. So expect, if you're having a boardroom meeting, making decisions about this city and resources and policy, expect the superheroes to be at your meeting. Where we're going to be all over it. So thank you very much for that. So thanks, superheroes. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Just go back to the slides. Just in a nutshell, which don't need saying now because our superheroes have done it for us. That's basically the programme overview, those different elements. We've got Youth Strand, which Marvina and Shannon are going to talk about, putting the next generation, the young generation, at the heart of decision making, given that what we pass on to the next generation is absolutely crucial. Climate justice at the heart of it, a central hub where we can learn and pull resources in. Hopefully in the centre we'll talk more about that. And then Tony and his team, the amazing community hub across Leeds. And then the transition partners we're going to hear more about across different areas like work, energy, food, and our training programme across the donut idea, our city plan, and well thought through. All those parts talk to each other, the way the community hubs and the central hub feed into each other, the transition partners support that, the training program pulls it all together, and the donut is a way that we can start to plan across all that stuff. So it's a kind of beautiful machine we've developed in Climate Action Leeds for this 5-year programme of work to unfold across those elements. And each of them has entry points for asking you to get involved and support it. So whatever your skill set and interest might be, there's something for you here. So on the next slide, and this is really just to say how we see change happen. So remember, our climate superheroes talked about 3 areas of change. And so we've really kind of thought a lot about this over the last 12 months when we've been coming together. So we're really trying to learn what we're up against, and what we need to do. And we really want to start to build and make stuff out in the communities and across the city, right? Be it in terms of transport, health, youth empowerment, energy, housing, you name it. We've got such amazing community groups doing this across every single sector and working across with business, with researchers, with the public sector and the private sector. We absolutely can make this happen. And then remembering at some point we've got to do that resisting, that acting, thinking about the structural constraints and pushing back a little bit when things aren't going our way. So they all come together in the next slide. We're doing all 3 things at the same time in different ways and in different times. So that's the kind of universe we want to test and check, how we see change happen. Because let's face it, if we're going to try and make change in this city, we need to have a decent idea about how we think change happens. So join us on that journey, pushing it, probing it, looking under the bonnet, see if we've got that right and how it exactly works. And then the final slide on this bit is really to say that it's underpinned by those values and principles, and we're continually reflecting and condensing and changing these. But for now, we want to be a values-led organisation, a very principle-led organisation. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because of the strong values we hold, and those are the ones we want to explore with you, with the city, with its institutions and its communities. What does all this actually mean? Okay, so that's a lot of stuff about, we've also got a guidebook we're going to launch this week. So anyone that comes to any of our events, by the end of the week, we're going to give you that guidebook which explains a little bit more about all this stuff, because obviously there's quite a lot of detail here, and this is just an introduction. Great, so I'm going to pass back to Andy and Jenny to pass on to the next people. So thanks very much.
I think we're moving to, is it Marvina and Shannon now?
Is it the transition partner first, or?
Oh, sorry, transition partner. So Pete, are you there, Pete? Calling Pete.
I am here. Hello.
Great. How did it go
Hi, Andy.
today?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it went really well. Yeah, so today we had our sector assembly for nature and food. And we sold all the tickets we put out. There was 35 spots, and most of them turned up. So I think we had about sort of between 30 and 40 people there. I think it helped that people hadn't met in person for a long time, so people just seemed generally excited to be gathering together. We did it at Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, and it was like a big covered barn space, so it was, you know, open air but under a cover. So yeah, it was really good. Everyone had a good time, and we had a nice tour of the farm, and it was just a really good sort of starting point for the whole project, I think, for us as the nature transition partner. Yeah.
In a nutshell, do you want to tell us what you're going to do with the nature theme?
So I think,
words?
Basically, there's already a lot of really good stuff happening. So we're just bringing extra capacity to the work that's already happening, and just really trying to get those connections and empower people just to do more of what they're doing, and the people who haven't maybe started yet, who want to start, to feel that confidence and that connection, so they're not alone, and we can all work together in solidarity. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pete.
No
Okay,
problem.
brilliant. Thank you. So can we bring in Marvina and Shannon?
Hi, everyone.
Shall I show a slide, or should we just keep?
Yes, please. If you've got the slide, that would be great. If you don't, we'll make it work.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
I'll share it.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to Climate Action Leeds and our Future Leeds and all the amazing partners that are doing some great work. It's great to see that our city, which we're all proud of, is going to be the heart of kickstarting something quite phenomenal. Working with Angel House and working with Shannon, my lovely co-founder, the two biggest things that we know about in Leeds when it comes to social action is Youth for Climate and be.
You've gone on to mute, Marvina.
We decided to come together to build something quite unique. And in this process, it's been a journey to work with Climate Action Leeds to come up with their youth engagement strategy, putting young people's voice at the heart of everything we do. And when we say putting young voice, we're looking at making sure it is intersectional, ensuring that we're looking at the different capacities that build young people, making sure it's international, looking at the carbon footprint and the voice and influence of those from minority community and the global south who are more affected by climate change, and also making sure it's intergenerational, where young people's voices are definitely placed at the heart of everything they do. With the donut economics that is going to be implemented, we are also looking at a way to ensure young people are not youth watched, their voices are valued, and it's a stepping stone to ensure that their future is the best space to be in Leeds. And I think with all your help, we should be able to do that. Also, we know that the mental anxiety of the future for young people is really affected over the years. Yeah. And they've been working so much around this idea. One of the biggest things that we want to make sure is that we work with key partners around the climate curriculum, like Leeds DC, Forum Central around mental health and wellbeing for children and young people, and some other key partners that might be able to support us. Shannon, I'm going to bring you in to kind of just talk about the next slide really quickly.
Thank you, Marvina. I was going to say, I think
I don't have a next slide, but
yeah,
sorry. That's fine. This is our slide. No, absolutely. I think you've done a fab job there, Marvina. I think you cut out slightly when you said the organisations that have come together. So just to clarify that, we're Angel House, but we're a coalition project between the two youth-led movements that we represent and have been fortunate to be part of it here in Leeds. Marvina from Black Lives Matter and myself from Youth Strike for Climate, now Youth for Climate, and trying to bring in that kind of that bridging space between these really strong youth-led movements that are doing phenomenal work and bringing so much energy, and trying to build kind of a bridging gap between that and some of these other kind of environmental climate action spaces, building on some fantastic work of Marvina's organisation, Angels of Youth, which you just saw the logo of there. So we've got heritage to build on. Really excited by the project. And anyone that is interested in terms of young people in Climate Action Leeds, please get in touch with us. We're looking to collaborate as much as possible, whether you've got young people who want to volunteer, or you've got ideas, or you're just interested in what's happening. I'll pop our email into the chat. And we are at the minute doing kind of two main bodies of work with Climate Action Leeds. So we are the partner with Leeds Development Education Centre, Leeds DEC with the Youth and Education Transition Partner. So that's where we're working on the climate curriculum.
Great.
And then we're also working with the internal staff at Climate Action Leeds. So really excited to be part of. And thank you for the introduction.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, and thank you, Marvina, as well. Okay, brilliant. So thanks to all of our partners, and I think we're into the next bit. It's a bit of a roller coaster non-stop here.
Okay, so I think we're handing over to Rhona Pringle now, who is leads of the our evaluation and learning partner, and Rhona is going to just give us a whistle-stop tour through some of the achievements of the first year of the project so far.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and absolutely delighted to see so many people here, if not in person. I was really pleased to hear us introduced by the superheroes, but just to reassure everybody, they did say that CAD Consultants is a London-based organisation, and our registered office is there, but I'm Leeds-based. Sorry, I'm Yorkshire-based, so not Leeds-based, but I'm in Yorkshire. So we are the learning and evaluation partner for Climate Action Leeds, and often, because of the monumental challenge that we all face in addressing climate change and what we do about it, we sometimes forget to mark and celebrate some of the progress made. So 12 months in to Climate Action Leeds, and I think it's worth just highlighting very quickly some of the key things that we've observed in our role as learning and evaluation partner. And the first one that Nick said at the start is securing £2.5 million from the National Lottery Climate Action Fund. As he said, 600 applications, and Climate Action Leeds has secured a significant grant for movement building for climate action. So absolutely fantastic to celebrate that. The other key thing, as with everybody else, is navigating, setting up this emergent movement building approach during pandemic times. Not easy for any of us to operate during a pandemic, but setting this up with the multiple partners and the different platforms and trying to have an inclusive approach to decision making has been phenomenal. So that's been a real highlight. And in doing that, there's been a huge amount of work undertaken already. A lot of it is process building, foundational, to make sure that the process that we're all following and the activities we're undertaking has got that strong foundation. So a lot of it may have been behind the scenes, but fantastic work done on setting up training programs, developing the citywide movement building approach, getting the communications, the website up and running, no small endeavour, getting the, as we heard from the community hubs, getting the first 4 set up, absolutely brilliant. And they've been operational for some time, and the process to get that in place with 4 more to come and some mini hubs to come. So that's absolutely brilliant. Getting the transition partners, you heard from Peter a minute ago, and the process, which was very inclusive, involving all of the Climate Action Leeds partners to appoint them and recruit them, has been phenomenal. And I would just say one of the key things for me is, I was saying last but by no means least, is that the partnership is maturing. We've been involved for 6 months, and there've been challenges, bringing all of the different organisations here this evening and more individuals together. We've all got different ways of working, and getting used to working with each other and making sure that we can overcome challenges. It's a real learning organisation, and I think that bodes well for the challenges that we've got over the next 4 years and beyond. So I will finish there with my quick rattle through of some of the highlights.
Thank you, Rhona. think Andy's going to introduce the panel now.
Great. Okay, fantastic. So, well, I'm introducing the panel, but I think really what I'm introducing Peg Alexander, who is a broadcaster and former politician. Between 1994 and 1996, Peg worked as the coordinator of National Group on Home Working, campaigning organisation, working to improve the pay and rights of home-based workers. Peg has spent many years running charities and campaigns, public policy and government. And she is now a broadcaster and presenter and basically helps people to have great conversations, which is hopefully what we're just about to do now. So we're really excited to have you here, Peg, and over to you to run our panel.
Brilliant. You've been reading my Wikipedia page.
I have indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Yeah, just absolutely brilliant to be here. My job is for the next 40 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less, going to take us through the panel discussion tonight. So I don't need to say much more about myself. As Sandy says, I'm a journalist and presenter. What you probably guessed from what he said is that presenting and journalism is my second life, it's my second career. And I do that alongside still working around policy, community development, working in people-powered housing and stuff. And I've also been around the climate change campaign and action for nearly 30 years. So there we go. Definitely got the t-shirt. So this discussion that we're going to have is about how we step up to this challenge, how we move from this analysis that we've heard so much about to action, or essentially how do we supercharge climate action in Leeds to get to that vision that we've got of a zero carbon, nature friendly, socially just Leeds by the 2030s. So we've got 5 speakers for you. I'm going to give them all 2 or 3 minutes to kind of make an introduction, to tell us the main points that they would like us to think about, and then we're going to start having a discussion. I want to keep it as interactive as possible, but we know that's dead hard on Zoom. So keep using the chat, put your comments, your thoughts, your questions in there as we go. I'm reading that all the way through. I will bring that into the discussion, and I'll also see whether we can bring people on screen to talk as well. But if we do, a bit of a plea really, to make it kind of direct questions rather than speeches, if that's possible. So what we've got on the panel, to try and keep it as broad as possible, we've basically got a politician, a scientist, an activist, a climate advisor, and a young person. I think we've covered most of the bases there, haven't we? So let me introduce our panel now. Well, Councillor Helen Hayden is the Council's Executive Member for Infrastructure and Climate and Local Councillor for Temple Newsham. She's a member of the Climate Emergency Advisory Committee, but she's not the chair. We have Professor Paul Chatterton, who you've already heard from, but Paul's here as our scientist. He's actually Professor of Urban Futures at the university and Director of their Sustainable Cities Group. He's a major mover and shaker in the city and is been part of creating Leeds Climate Action. Kate Locke is from the Leeds Climate Commission, which is a citywide partnership working towards zero carbon. She's also the Policy and Communications Manager at the Place-Based Climate Action Network and chairs the Engagement and Communications Panel for the Commission. We've got Liz Cass from our Future Leeds, which is a people-powered movement to create a sustainable, livable, socially just city. And she's also part of Extinction Rebellion Families. And then certainly not least, but unfortunately last in my list, we have Katrina Rawnstone, who's a student at the University of Leeds. And she's also part of the Leeds Donut Coalition. So for anyone who doesn't know about donut economics, I'm sure we'll get an explanation of that in the discussion. It's going to come up later on as well. Just to remind you, if you're tweeting, please tweet with the hashtag at Climate Action Leeds, the hashtag Climate Action Leeds, or at Climate Act Leeds. Loads of issues, I'm sure, are going to come up over the next 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to take you in the order that you're showing on my screen, if that's all right, which is a bit random. I'll tell you what it is. It's Liz, Paul, Helen, Kate, Katrina. 2-3 minutes. Kind of make your big statement. Kind of give us the sell, if you like, on how we move this from a set of ambitions into supercharging it into change for Leeds. So Liz, can I hand over to you?
Thank you. That's quite a big ask to do in 2-3 minutes. I haven't really prepared something, so I'm just going to say whatever comes out. I'm not someone that's known about the environmental problems that we face for decades. I was woken up, shall we say, by Extinction Rebellion at the beginning, and for a better way to put it, I went into a blind panic. And since then, I've basically been eating, living, breathing the climate crisis and what do we do about it. So Extinction Rebellion was the first caused with, and since then I have got involved with Our Future Leeds. I started Extinction Rebellion Families in Leeds, which will tie in a lot with, and has tied in a lot with, Youth Strike and the child and youth events, as we always have been a part of the Youth Strike actions. And I mean, I've found the food growing initiatives. I know Pete from Hyde Park Source, there's Incredible Edible. So it seems like the more you're in it, you make these connections, you find all these different groups and find out that there is actually so much happening around the city. And I think that Our Future Leeds and the Climate Action plan, as you say, is to boost everything. And it's amazing, there's over 80 people in this meeting today. And I don't think I need to tell the people in this room that being an active citizen is so important, and that the government that we've got right now are perpetuating everything that is destroying our planet, and they are not going to do anything to fix it without all of us forcing them to. But there's far more of us than there is of them. So it's about the relationships we build and the conversations we have with everybody around us every single day. And there may only be 80 people in this room, which is nothing compared to how many people there are in the city, but all of the conversations that we have will be spreading like a network, and I really am optimistic about this project. So thank you everybody for being here.
Brilliant, Liz, thank you. Can I just ask you something? You said you started off there by saying you put into blind panic right at the start. Has your activism helped you to reduce that panic? Does it, you know, because sometimes this can feel so big, so huge and so scary. Has that been something on a personal level you'd recommend to other people to try and assist them with any fear?
Yeah, it definitely helps, and it helps to be surrounded by like-minded people. The fear, the panic, the anxiety, it comes in waves. There's a book Joanna Macy wrote called Active Hope, which talks a lot about how hope is action. It's not just, oh, I hope we're going to have a better future and maybe something's going to happen. That's not having hope. Hope is when you do things to create that better future. So there'll be days where I feel really positive and everything seems to be going well and it seems like you've accomplished something, and then there'll be weeks and weeks where you feel like you're working so hard and nothing's coming of it, and you're coming up against barriers because you've sent the same letter to the council 20 times and still not had a response, or you've applied for funding which you haven't got, and things like that can make it feel really difficult again. But yeah, taking action and surrounding yourself with other people that are on that, have that same passion and same drive as you, it definitely does help.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Paul Chatterton, let me come to you from Our Future Leeds. Tell us, how do we super speed this? I think super speed was your word you gave to me in the briefing on this. So come on, how do we super speed this? How do we step up to this challenge?
That's supercharging, you're right, yeah. By the way, I've got a slight imposter syndrome. I'm not a scientist, I'm a social scientist, but that'll do, won't it? I mean, I've been out of this game for 25 years looking at climate policy and action. And I think really what keeps me awake at night is that when my science colleagues, and especially the international scientific community, you know, they've run out of adjectives, which is interesting. I mean, like in 2018, in their big report on 1.5 degree of warming, and then this year on this 6th assessment report, I mean, they've used 5 words. They've used unprecedented, large scale, rapid, far reaching, and immediate. I mean, they've run out of adjectives. I mean, what they're trying to tell us is that, like, what they've always known is now in acceleration, yeah? And we need to act in a rapid, immediate, far reaching way. And I think what I feel my task is now, working in a university, is to marshal all the massive decade of opportunity and the massive decade of challenge we've got ahead of us. How do we completely refigure the institutions we work in? My own institution, you know, the vast resources of the campus, into emergency mode, right? Not to panic, but to be that first responder who's on the scene and say, look, how do we kind of like be on that scene and say, look, we need to tell the truth about what we're up against, but we can, and we do still have time to build these solutions to both adapt and mitigate to the worst effects of climate change. And every single month we delay is a month more difficult in the future, right? So in Leeds, we've still got 4 million tonnes a year of emissions, and that needs to go down every year, not in 5 years, not in 10 years, but next year and the year after and the year after. That's in transport and housing and shopping and aviation and all those things where we know it makes sense. So this is what I've learned and I know. So, from now on, I teach the climate emergency. I demand from our young people in the university to demand better, to demand to be taught what's happening, right? To demand the education that they need and the solutions that we all need. So I'd like to see the scientific and research institutions of this city to be put at the task of that great transformation, right? That great 10-year task. The solutions, relocalizing the economy, building a thriving and safe economy and culture, reducing car dependency, coming up with the solutions, because there's the solutions in buckets at the university. They're trapped, right? I've got my colleagues that are writing in peer-reviewed journals and only 20 people read them, and there's like science reports that take years to get out, and it's like, no, we need those now. We need a massive city centre. It's our plan, right, to have a massive city centre climate action solution depot, right, where you can, rather than rolling up to IKEA and getting your furniture, you roll up and get your solutions. And we need to roll those out across the city as quickly as we can. And the great thing is, we need to do this in partnership with Leeds Climate Commission, who's really clearly told us the roadmap, with Helen and her colleagues at the council, who have the legislation, the legislative power and the regulation and to do this, right, and the democratic buy-in through their councillors. And we need the business community with their resources and leverage and funding, and we need the civic organisation with the buy-in. So I call that, Peg, I call that a breakaway coalition. I call that our 10-year breakaway coalition, who need to get together now and forget the differences and forget the previous squabbling and the differences, and say it's a 10-year plan for Leeds to save this city, and I absolutely know we can.
Let me just ask you a really, really quick question on that, on the timescales, because that whole sense of time emergency came through very clearly in everything you said. A community development approach, though, sometimes can be quite slow, can't it? We all of us who've worked in community development know that bringing people with you can sometimes take time. How do we marry up the time challenges we've got in terms of climate change and the need to bring people with us?
Do you know the simple response is? The people are already ahead of us. I think there's this idea that like somehow we have to like treat people with kid gloves because they're not ready for this. I think like the history of Britain is to actually like be a bit paternalistic and say actually people aren't ready for this. What I hear and like what I see in polls and I see in government in reports and media stuff is like people know about this stuff and they want to see action. They just feel powerless because they know they can't really shift stuff right on their own. They want to connect and want to know the politicians are going to go for it if what they put on the table is really going to happen.
Okay, that's a really good time to bring in Helen, I think. Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Helen Hayden, you're kind of effectively the boss, the person in charge of this. So come on, give us your spiel.
Talk about imposter syndrome. It's really great to be here tonight, and I like the word action because Paul's quite right, and Andy spoke earlier about the time for kind of having discussions is over. We know what the problem is, but we know what we have to do. Trouble is doing it. Paul mentioned there kind of what we've got as a council. The one thing we haven't got a lot of is funding, and we've had 10 years of austerity, and so to face the next 10 years is going to be really, and a pandemic. So, to face the next 10 years, it's going to be really, really challenging. Where I'm really passionate and is about the climate justice, because in many, many homes in my ward of Temple Newsome, people can't concentrate on this emergency because they've got their own emergencies playing out in their homes, with deciding between eating and heating this winter. And we've seen that the climate emergency affects the poorest the most. And we're seeing it at the moment played out in the gas prices and you know, in the same week that there was cut to universal credit, big business are going to the government to help with their gas bill. We should have moved away from, you know, fossil fuels and things like that a long time ago. But if they don't get help, the prices go up, and food prices are going to go up, and the heating bills are going to go up, and so we've got a huge problem brewing. We've already got a big problem with poverty now, and the thousands of children that are living in poverty in the city, and that's what makes me get out of bed every morning and fight this fight. So it was really great to hear what was happening across Seacroft, and I want a little bit of that for my ward, please. If you can spare some sunflowers, we'd be very happy up in Temple Newsam, where we've got fantastic parks which have really helped people in my local area, and during the pandemic and the lockdowns, and we really appreciate them. And we've got this fantastic Temple Newsam, but our own Primrose Valley, which is opposite my house, which I've been for a walk to today, which used to be the municipal dump tip, basically. And it just shows what we can do as a city. But we need to get people's houses insulated and retrofitted. We need to get people for really, and we're launching the transport strategy, where we want Leeds to be a place where you don't need a car, where you can rely on the bus, where you can cycle safely and walk in a pleasant, safe way wherever you want to go, and connecting those communities, like happened in the pandemic, in our own community here, where people, the only place they could talk was out walking and things like that. So apart from on the ubiquitous Zoom, and we need to harness what we learned, the experience we had during the last few years, but really that call to action, and right, what we're going to do. And we're already doing it as much as we possibly can, but if we didn't have to go funding round after funding round and bidding against other local authorities and put in competition with each other, we could do so much more, and we could do it now.
Let me just push you a little bit on that, Helen, because obviously as the executive member for infrastructure and climate, in theory, you should be one of the people who's most in a position to really be spearheading a lot more of that action. Is the more practical things that we can be doing, that the council can do, even given the current financial situation? Because the time is against us, isn't it? We've got to start getting this action happening.
We are doing loads. So was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? I was at the low carbon food launch. So launch. And we've got 3 priorities about the carbon of food. So working with our young people in schools who said, yes, we want to go meat free for 2 days. We've got these pledges to only source from the local area in terms of Yorkshire and surrounding counties, that we'll have no air freighted food, and that we will cut the carbon of food. We've retrofitted 2,000 flats and connected them to the district heating network. We're connecting all our civic buildings, the hospitals come online, a low carbon, low cost heat. So in a scrutiny meeting, we heard our current Lord Mayor, Councillor Khan, talking about a woman he met in a high-rise flat, who lives in a high-rise flat in his ward of Birmingham Tops and Richmond Hill. And she said, every December I have to choose between buying food and paying my heating bill. And she said, and last December I didn't have to make that choice. And that to me is what we can do. So we're fitting with ground source heating, solar panels, air source heating, 40 schools and leisure centres and things like that. But we could do so much more if we had the funding, and if we didn't have to long-term sustained funding that we know that we've got for the next 5 years, that we know that we don't have to keep going through this round of bidding and taking up officer time that can be used to doing the great work they're doing. Sorry, thank you.
That's not obviously the short-term funding, a challenge for everyone. Just to say, in the chat, there's quite a few people have mentioned various aspects of transport. People talking about cars, people talking about the airport potential expansion, and also a question there about having a long lease on the central hub building. I don't know, Helen, whether you want to put anything back in the chat. I'm sure they're going to come up in the rest of the discussion. Thank you for that for now. Let me move on to Kate. You're next on my screen, Kate. You're from the Climate Commission. Give us your pitch. How do we supercharge this?
Yeah, thanks, Peg. So yes, I'm from Leeds Climate Commission, which began back in 2017. So we've been doing this a little while now, but if you don't know about us, we're a citywide partnership. We're an advisory group, we're an independent advisory group, and we bring together representatives from the public, private and civic sectors of the city. So it's just absolutely thrilling to be here and to hear all the plans, the plans for a citywide action plan and for the neighbourhood plans as well. And the Leeds Carbon Roadmap has been referenced. And is it okay? I'm not going to present anything, but I just share my screen and show you the Leeds Carbon Roadmap. We have it on an infographic. So there, can you see that? Yep. Someone give me a wave. I think so.
Yeah, could you just really quickly, for those of us who are peering and got bad eyesight, just really roughly.
Yeah, I'm going to talk through it. Yeah, definitely. So this was published at the start of this year, and it's the latest version of the net zero carbon roadmap. And it, basically, we know Leeds has got a 2030 net zero target, and the good news is that our roadmap, and I'll put a link, or I'm sure Simon will put a link to the roadmap in the chat for you. But the roadmap shows how Leeds could achieve this while becoming a better place with cleaner air, improved public health, reduced poverty and inequality, and increased employment and increased prosperity. And our roadmap shows that we can reach this target through, and there are kind of 3 levels of this. There are the cost-effective measures that pay for themselves over time, like better housing and transport. And these can close the gap between where we are now and where we need to get to by 40%, and cut Leeds' energy bills by £651 million a year, and create 15,000 extra years of employment. So that is really good news. There are a raft of more ambitious and expensive, technically viable options that could close that gap even further by 60%. And they will also have benefits for health and equality and travel and the environment. We also factored in the recommendations from the Leeds Climate Change Citizens Jury that we ran in 2019. And if you factor in those as well, that takes us another 10% along the road. That leaves us with a gap of 30%. And we think that this could be closed by innovative actions like decarbonising heating, planting trees, lots of trees, changing behaviours and consumption habits, such as the promotion of active travel, reductions in meat and dairy consumption, and the generation of food, and reductions in the generation of food waste, and also reduced consumption of concrete and steel, with more emphasis on green infrastructure. So there is a roadmap there. And I think, at the starting point, people are asking, what do we need to do now? The really key sectors, they're all key, but transport and housing are the 2 really key ones. Transport accounts for 38% of our emissions, and housing accounts for just over a quarter of current emissions. So the carbon roadmap, it's got a big, you can look at the back of it, it's got an appendix which gives you kind of a list of all of the actions we can take, but the top 10 are all around transport, heating and reducing energy demand. So I won't go into details, but it's what you'd expect: home insulation, switching to cycling, switching to walking, more efficient appliances, heat pumps, switching to EVs, switching to electric buses, switching to walking. So those kinds of things. And I don't know whether you heard Boris Johnson. I'm not a fan of his, but he did say his mantra. I don't know whether you heard his mantra for the UK for COP26, which was coal, cash, cars and trees, and he kept repeating that. Well, I think we need a mantra for Leeds, and based on this roadmap, ours could be walk, bike, bus Leeds. It could also be insulate, install and electrify Leeds, but trees are going to come into it whichever way we do it. So taking all those actions will require political, social and business support within the city, and obviously support from central government and investors who influence life in the city. And there is a substantial role to be played by the largest organisations and energy users in the city, which should be encouraged to set an example and follow suit with their own individual roadmaps and action plans for reaching the city's target. And one thing I think I'd like to propose personally, I'm sure you've heard about the Race for Zero that's connected with COP. We could have our own Leeds Race to Zero because it's about submitting your targets and your action plans for organisations. So I think that's a really, really key thing. But I mean, we need everyone to feel a part of this, and we need to listen to people, and and we know that's crucial. And having a just transition is completely at the heart of this. Overwhelmingly, we do need system change, but individual change also helps to build momentum, to change public opinion, to increase demand, and crucially to put pressure on those with the power to affect the big policy changes that are needed. And just a couple of other very quick points. It's very easy, especially when you're talking about a 2030 target, for mitigation measures to dominate these discussions. But people generally don't make sort of such hard and fast distinctions between measures to cut carbon and to protect us from climate change impacts, which is the adaptation side. And that's good, because we shouldn't silo it, and we really need to join things up. And the mention of a nature-friendly Leeds, I don't know whether we talked about that so much yet, but I was so pleased to hear about what you're doing in Seacroft, because the mention of a nature-friendly Leeds is really, really important in and of itself. It was announced today that the UK is one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. And so that's really important, but it's important for adaptation and resilience benefits. And also because I believe that understanding and reconnecting with nature is really key to our survival. There was for mental and physical health. So data and graphs won't get us where we need to be. They'll show us where we need to go, but we need a vision, and we need to tell a story of the benefits and of the opportunities that inspire and get people excited about the journey and its potential. So we need to share and communicate why the things are in danger, why we're in danger of losing, are valuable and important to us. And for that, we need the arts, we need music, we need poetry, we need passion, and we need love. Because as nature writer Helen MacDonald says, hard science will give you the numbers, but we need to communicate the value of things so that more of us might fight.
Right, thank you. I'm not going to come back and ask you a question, Kate, because you've been very comprehensive there, taught for a while. Thank you on that. I am going to come back to the transport question after we've heard from Katrina. I'll warn you all there in terms of the discussion that's going on there. Just a quick plug before I forget. Kate finished there talking about love. Kind of Leeds is having its first ever Kindex. It's Kind Exchange tomorrow at the Civic Hall. That's going on all day. People talking about the things they're doing to make the city a kinder and more compassionate place. Katrina, can I come to you? You're our young person on the panel. Clearly, a number of us are not going to be as affected because we'll be gone. This is your future. Come on, give us your
So
spiel.
I'm Katrina Rossvaughan. I'm a master's student at the University of Leeds studying sustainable cities. I wanted to find a way that I could equip myself with the skills to approach the challenges of today. And with that, I've been working with the Leeds Donut Coalition and Climate Action Leeds to downscale donut economics to the city of Leeds. And yeah, with that, I think a priority for me is building cities that are based on what people need to thrive. And it needs to happen across every level, from within the communities to the citywide to national. And I think the root of this is ensuring people on the ground in communities, especially young people and marginalised groups, that have a voice to establish the conditions of what it would mean to thrive for them. I think we need to establish platforms for people to come together with opportunities to build networks, networks of trust, of support, where we can share our skills, where we can learn skills to achieve strong communities. So we're in a position where we can collectively act and are empowered to make our vision of thriving become a reality. I think as a young person, we need these spaces to come together and take actions and learn from each other, because it's our generation, like you said, that's going to be affected the most of it. I think it needs to happen in a way that different societal groups come together. So we need to find and establish channels for like city governments to come and engage with community and direct our city's policy around people and planet, not economic growth. And I think the youth voice should be at the centre of this, because it's our future, and therefore we need to be the key actors in this transformation. Thriving is going to mean different people for different things, for different people and different communities. And this should totally be represented in and shape our approach moving forward, including the young voice. I think this is, really important. And I think finally, like, we need places across Leeds where these conditions can be enacted in a way that isn't extractive, it's not consumption based, where people don't need to spend money to occupy space within their communities. I think that's a big one. Like places that people can get together, when it's raining. And we need to prioritise community collaboration, practices of commoning, connectivity, and care on a local level. I think for me, these are the seeds of the radical transformation that can help us achieve the human thriving within our planetary boundaries.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Let me just ask you a quick question, because obviously you've just made an impassioned plea then. We also heard from Marvina and Shannon earlier as well. Just for those of us who are old farts like me, right, please, can you kind of tell us what is the different bit, that what is different about the youth voice, the kind of the outlook, what we need to hear to understand that it is different?
I think for a lot of young people, and for myself, like, we don't see it as a choice, we see it as something that needs to happen. And it's frustrating not knowing that not everyone sees it in that way, especially when they're not in a position where it's going to be there and their future families that are going to be the ones that feel the impacts. I think we see things going in a way that society is becoming out of touch for us. Like with housing, we've all got worries about what we're going to do when we're older. Transport's expensive. There's a lot of pressures, and I think we see it as now conditions we need to have a good life, really.
Thank you.
For us and people outside of the UK,
Yeah, and I think that's for everybody to hear, is that this isn't, for young people, this isn't just a kind of a theoretical of an issue. Do you know what I mean? This is your future, and I mean, I don't know how old you are, but probably, in 30 years time, if you're the same age as me or whatever, what is the world, if we don't hit 1.5 degrees, what is the world going to be like? And I still like to think that I'm 15 in my head. Do you know what I mean? So, what kind of world are we leaving people? Right, we've got 10 minutes left. I want to bring us to transport. There's loads of issues come up in the chat. And it would be really great to see people kind of answering some of those questions. There's this idea of a hub pull. People really liked that. There was quite a lot of talk about that. There's the whole question about women as well, which I think is really, really interesting. I heard a brilliant talk the other day. I was actually chairing a part of a feminist international green economic conference. There was a talk from the Women's Resource Group, and they've done work looking at demands for new green deals. Don't look at women's employment, and they tend to look at infrastructure, basically, and infrastructure tends to mean men's jobs and works. It's the biggest issue in the city. It just comes up over and over and over again. It's the one that everybody wants to talk about. I think Boris Johnson did use the phrase, didn't he, at the conference about Leeds being the largest city in Europe without a coordinated mass transport system. Helen, let's go to you first. Where are we up to on transport? What more can we do? Because if we're going to get people out of cars and we're going to get people walking and cycling, we need to do something different, don't we?
Yeah, and we're investing money that's come from various sources into what we call connecting Leeds. So if we start with cycling, during the emergency powers that we had during the pandemic, may have noticed on the A650, the orcas or ones that we that were put down, they're becoming permanent. The active travel neighbourhoods, which is a positive way of saying about the low traffic neighbourhoods, which causing such controversy down in London. And one of my counterparts in London, in Waltham Forest, I think it was, he has actually suffered from death threats because of their active travel or low traffic neighbourhood, which now nobody wants to get rid of because they all think it's fantastic. But you know, very, very difficult time for people like us. If we look at the one in Hyde Park, definitely challenging, and not everyone likes it, not everyone wants it. Tend to be people who don't live in Hyde Park, but you know, they don't. There's definitely challenges, but we're doing a lot of segregating cycle lanes. So I did a launch run coming past the arena there, and children from primary school very nearby cycled in safely on the segregated cycle lane. So a lot happening like that, and within about 2-3 years you will be able to cycle from north to south, east to west through the city centre safely on a segregated cycle. And so we go from Seacroft to Bradford on the super cycle highway, but now you'll be able to go through Leeds and connect with the different things in Leeds.
I mean, that would be brilliant, because I cycle, right? And I cycle quite a bit across London, and I have to say it is way safer and easier cycling across London, I think, than it is cycling across Leeds. And that is a bit of a worry, and it's because there's better cycle lanes. There isn't glass all full of the lanes, which is one of the big issues, and it feels like there's a much better network. So anything we can do to make it easier would.
It's funny because Fabian Hamilton MP was saying that he actually prefers cycling in Leeds than in London, and he finds it safer travelling from his home to Leeds station. So it is a matter of opinion. I'd always choose Leeds over London, no matter what the scenario. But cycling's one thing, making it walking as well. We've got the Walk It, Ride It campaign. So, but I'm really proud of our park and rides. My maiden speech was about the Temple Green Park and Ride, which is literally on the edge of my ward down in what we call Cross Green, and now our new one at Sturton Park at Sturton, which is fueled by solar powers. And we built the park and ride, but actually we intended to build a park and ride, but we actually built a little mini power station, and we're going to be feeding it back into the grid. And the buses are all electric. It's the first bus, electric bus park and ride in the country. So, gosh, there's so much going on.
Let me move that out. Anybody else want to come in on this transport question? I mean, there's obviously, it's not just walking and cycling, there's obviously the airport question as well. Anybody else want to come in on this? No, you're all silent. No one else.
Can I mention the airport, please?
Yep.
Yeah, can I mention the airport? Because that's not within my remit. I have no control over the airport whatsoever. So basically what I have control over is the way that people get around Leeds. The airport is a regional airport, as everybody knows, and the planning decision was made by Leeds Planning Committee, which is cross-party and which I'm not allowed to influence. And it was just before I came into post, and my predecessor was not allowed to influence either. It's not policy. We don't have a policy over the airport. It's a private, sold by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition 3 years ago, so sold into private ownership. And what we need is an airport strategy, an air travel strategy from our government, because what we've got is airports competing for business around a very small, geographically small country, and on bus travel. Now it's like we've now got this flat fare of £1.20. It's not low enough. If you look over in Greater Manchester, where the mayor has been able to give free bus travel for 16 to 18-year-olds, now my nieces just choose the bus because it's what you do.
Sorry to move you on.
That modal shift.
We've only got a few minutes left.
Bringing the buses, it'll take a while, but she's already started bringing them back into public ownership. So hopefully we won't have these problems in the future.
Thank you. Thanks. Paul, you took yourself off mute. Did you want to say something on the transport question? We've only got a few minutes left, by the way.
I mean, I think the fact that the council have and led by Helen and predecessors have put this new strategy on the table is amazing. I mean, I'm just, for someone who lives in Leeds and bringing kids up in Leeds, I'm kind of grateful because you've done it, but I'm really excited because I'm like, for me, getting around Leeds is a bit shit, but like I know for my kids it's going to be brilliant, and I'm happy about that, right? But I'm just like, you know what we said at the beginning, you know, unprecedented, large scale, like, you know, rapid. And I'm like, it lingers in my head because I know what that translates to, right, is bigger than what we're doing. And I know I know, Helen, we're all doing it as much as we can as a city, and we need to like bash through this national blockade that we've got as well, right? But it's like we've got to change, like going on, Kat made some really great points we mustn't lose. Like, we've got to change why we're all rushing around this city. If we don't change the reason we're all rushing around this city, we won't solve the problem. A few cycle lanes here and there are brilliant lifestyle things, but we've got to take road space, and like we've got to offer people, if they're going to be serious of people getting out of their cars and not get the gilets jaunes, which we don't want, right? Because I've got a car, right? Is that we all share a car, is that we have to offer an alternative. I think it's got to be the big move for me, free, fully electric, publicly owned bus service, and put it on the table and say, no cars, free bus. And that's the citizens' jury went for number one on that one.
Oh, I'd love to do that, Paul. I'd do it tomorrow if I could.
90 million quid. We've done it. We did it in COVID for 18 months. The government made all buses free and it was 90 million quid in West Yorkshire. We could do it again on 90 million quid, which is half a year's profit for the first bus.
Okay, well, we need to lobby the government.
Yeah, let's do it.
Lobby the government, or lobby Tracy Braben as well. Liz, Kate, Kat, do you want to come back in on anything before we finish on this panel? Because we are coming up to the end of our time.
I think, well, Paul said it with transport, but I think it's true with everything else, like public space and taking over it. And in COVID, we saw people use the space that was made available for them. So if we make more space for people come out of their houses and they live less of an individualistic lifestyle, and we meet people through doing that spontaneously. So I think a key priority is just creating these spaces where people can mix, people can see other people, because you only grow that care and empathy for other people when you're interacting.
Yeah, some nodding there, Liz.
Yeah, I've seen all along Harrogate Road, they might be in other places, there's these big signs now that say like walk, cycle, do all this before getting in the car. But for me, having my daughter, like we don't have a car anymore. I recently got rid of it. And I've loved the transition in some ways. And I didn't drive it a lot before, only when I was going out of the city, because I would always walk if we ever could. But the pollution that you're breathing in makes walking horrible. And we need to make that better for people. And for example, there's places where you cannot walk, or it's very dangerous to walk. Like if, I'm in Mott, which is North Leeds, and if you go up King Lane, if you want to go up to Alwoodley, there's a huge section of the road that has no pavement and cars fly down there. So what we need to do for things like that is be closing the road. It needs traffic lights, one either side, and only one lane of traffic going down. We have to make walking safer, we have to make it more enjoyable, and we have to make driving take longer, so that it is actually far longer to get in your car and drive to the shop than it is to walk with a basket. And I think when we do that, we'll start to see more shifts happening as people realise that walking is not only better for your health and cheaper, but also a more enjoyable experience as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And Kate, do you want to just come in and say something to finish off?
Yeah, sure. Well, Helen and I were both in a workshop last week, which is about climate friendly Leeds. And I thought it was really fascinating. It ties in with some of the points, well, all of the points made here really, but totally support what Paul's saying about the buses in an ideal world. But we actually kind of posited, the workshop really basically said, people are all worried about climate change, and we know that, but why is there a kind of disconnect between what needs to happen, you know, and you know, this kind of huge concern. And this workshop was really kind of digging into sort of trying to pull out principles, and then applying those principles and looking at the context of people's lives. And go back to what you were saying, Peg, about women in particular. And we talked about the buses and things like that. And I probably shouldn't sort of say what came out of the workshop, but that was just a really simple solution that someone said that kind of linked all of that together. And it was just having that chance to drill down what is the context of people's lives that makes these things difficult because people want to do it. And I think more of that, there will be a report coming out soon, but more of that kind of discussion, which, hopefully will go on in the hubs and all the rest of it, will then start to kind of untangle a lot of these kind of knotty issues where we just keep coming up like that. So we'll
I think that's a great message to end on there, because that very much what Kat was saying as well. Let's look at those solutions that actually make people's lives easier and the things that they want to happen in their own lives. I mean, I think this question of where the car sits in our city is one that Leeds has really struggled with. As the developed Leeds, if you look back at the development of this city in kind of recent years, ever since motorway city of the 70s, right, this city has really struggled actually, and I would say political leadership of different colours have really struggled to get a grasp of making decisions about where the car sits, because of the fear of the economic impact of actually deprioritising space for cars and space for roads. That's my little personal gripe. I think really we absolutely have hit a point where we've got to do that. I'm afraid to say we're at the end of the time that we've got for this panel. We could continue it on for a long time. There's been loads of other suggestions gone on in the chat. Thank you very much. Absolutely brilliant. I'm sure Helen's been reading them and looking at those comments and ideas and thoughts that are there. I'm going to hand back over, I think, to Andy, who's going to tell us what we've got for a break.
Okay, well,
thank you very much, all our panelists.
Thank you, Peg. That's fantastic. And as Peg says, we could go on, and that's the point. One of the points of Climate Action Leeds is that we can have these discussions, drill down, find out where the solutions lie, and implement them together. I'm really hesitant to even call this a break, because we haven't got very long. It's like 2 or 3 minutes. It's like, have a stretch, grab a glass of water and come back. So this is a non-commercial break. Please do whatever you need to do and get back here. See you in a couple of minutes.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much to everyone who's spoken so far. It's really great that everybody is desperate to get into some of the issues with each other. It's really inspiring to have Marvina, Shannon, Kate, Clarrie, all from different perspectives, bringing your wisdom, your energy and your action towards this. So we've got a chance for some more in-depth discussion now in breakout groups, and we are Simon, could you put the question in the chat, please? We're asking you to think about what is the most important thing Leeds needs to do to rise to the challenges of the climate and nature emergency. And we've got about 10-12 minutes in the groups. Don't worry about taking notes. There's going to be somebody from the staff team who's there to scribe to capture those conversations. So this is just an opportunity to give people the chance to have a voice in a smaller group. So if we could activate those breakout groups now, please. Thanks.
Right, welcome back, everyone. So, cool, it's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? We're all like here, there, and everywhere. It's fantastic. What a brilliant conversation. It's we were just saying, we need more of this. We could spend a whole week on this. We could spend months. Well, we're going to, aren't we? So, good way to get us started for this launch. Okay, so what is next? I think we have a short film to introduce donut economics for anyone that hasn't come across it before. And once we've watched the film, we're going to go to Tony, who's going to tell us about the ambitions for the programme over the coming months and years. Certainly our next steps.
In the 20th century, economics lost its purpose and started chasing the false goal of GDP growth. In recent decades, that has pushed many societies into deepening inequality, and it's pushing us all towards ecological collapse. This century calls for a new goal, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. In other words, it's time to get into the donut, the sweet spot for humanity. But that's no easy task. Today, billions of people still fall short of their daily needs, from food, housing and energy to healthcare and education. And yet collectively, we've already overshot our pressure on some of Earth's most critical life support systems, driving climate change and the breakdown of biodiversity. What we do to this Earth in the next 50 years will shape the next 10,000. So let's replace that last century goal of endless growth with the goal of thriving in balance. And if we're to have half a chance of getting there, what economic mindset would be fit for the task?
Fantastic. So that gives you a bit of an insight. And over to Tony to say a bit more.
Thanks, Andy. So I don't know if we need to put the link to the slides in again, but I'm just going to talk around slide 16 if you've got it.
I'll share my screen. That's fine. Let's see.
One before that.
Yeah, and Harry's just moving it. That's one. There we
are. Okay, so we've talked about so many things already that I'm not going to talk entirely through this list, but it's all these activities and events will be in Climate Action Leeds website, in our newsletter and so on. And over the next period of time, we're going to develop a city hub. There'll be lots of workshops. We've looked a little bit at the donut and the donut economics that will inspire our city plan. And there'll be at least 2 public events in the next 12 months. And there'll be loads of opportunities in a training program. In terms of the communities, we've already been working in 4 for about a year. And those 4 are now going to be operational with a 2-day-a-week worker, putting their plans into action and developing local hubs. And we're about to start work in 4 more in Alwoodley, Horsforth, Armley and Little London. In a few months, probably January, we'll be launching a grants programme in 2 parts. And the communities in the grants programme is something that myself and others in the team from Together for Peace are running or coordinating. And the grants programme, there'll be some small grants and we'll have some participatory events to make decisions about that. And there'll be a small number of mini hub projects where you can apply to get a mix of money and worker support. And the 7 transition partners will be running a whole range of events, building up networks, developing plans, providing support to hubs and getting support from hubs. So those are some of the things that will be happening. It'll all be really exciting, very full on, loads of ways you can get involved. But what in the limited time we've got now, I wanted to say was, if you move on to the next slide, that all these things are part of Climate Action Leeds programme. And we, that is Climate Action Leeds, will be putting on a whole range of opportunities for people to get involved through themes, through neighbourhoods, through the Donut Economics Group, through the city plan, the city hub and so on. But one of our key principles is that the whole Climate Action Leeds programme is community-led. So what does that mean? For me, it means that fairly obviously in the 8 communities that we're working in, the plans, the actions will be led by that community. But the programme being community-led means I think a lot more. It means that we as citizens of Leeds need to lead the programme. So the we that is the staff and the people putting stuff on through Climate Action Leeds will be providing platforms for people to use, we'll be opening doors for people to come through. But the we that needs to achieve our real ambitions of zero carbon, nature friendly, socially just Leeds in a decade, which is fantastic and ambitious and challenging, the we that needs to achieve that is we, the citizens of Leeds. So the we that was the 80 odd people who were here at the beginning, people who are currently taking lots of action, we need to take charge of spreading the word. We need to initiate and create things, and create things that we can spot the connection with Climate Action Leeds where that's helpful, so that you can get support for that. But it might be that you just need to get on and do things and add it to the weight of things that we're doing in Leeds, so that this becomes not just a programme. 2.5 million lottery funded is absolutely brilliant, but it's not enough. The we that needs to do all these things, we need to create this mass movement. We need to get beyond people who are currently active. We need to get to people who are currently not engaged, and there are lots, for all sorts of reasons. People who are busy putting food on the table, people who are busy doing their job. So my passion and my plea to you is to follow your passion. Look at your family, your friends, your neighbours, your colleagues. The we that work in business, the we that work in the public and community and voluntary sector, the we that are involved with politics. There's loads of things that are difficult to affect that are at planetary level, the system change at national level, but the individual changes, the community changes, the group changes that we can do interlink with the system change that's needed at a wider level. The more that we do, the more it builds the movement for change, the more that the planetary and UK and national and business systems need to take account of us and take notice of us. So, out of time already. So Climate Action Leeds will offer you loads of opportunities to get involved. Look at the website, look at the social media, read the newsletter, get in touch, tell us what you're doing. And we've got 5 years of a funded programme. Well, we need to end up with a massive movement that we, the citizens of Leeds, own, that will sustain that movement for change over the next decade. So that's my bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That's really inspiring. And without any further delay, let's pass on to Becca and Connor, who are going to tell us how we can all help.
Thank you, Jenny. Could you pop the slides back up for me, Andy, please?
I can indeed.
Thank you. Yeah. So thanks, Tony. That your kind of really inspiring sections led us on to kind of how you can help and what is still needed. And these are just kind of going to be a few key outlines from myself and Connor about how you can get involved. But there's obviously loads of ways you can get involved in supporting Climate Action Leeds and our aims and goals. Could you move on to the next slide for me, Andy? Thank you. Yeah, so just to start with, obviously we've mentioned a few times, we've had the short video about the Leeds Donut. So we do have a working group to Climate Action Leeds on the Leeds Donut. So we'd really welcome input on that. And obviously we've had Kat here who's on the working group for that. So if you want to find out more about it, or you're interested in that strand, we'd really welcome your input on that. Next slide, please, Andy.
My turn now. So yeah, we've got the City Hub here. So what we want to establish is a permanent venue for learning and addressing the needs of needs of the City of Leeds for the climate emergency and how we address it. But we can't really do that without the help of everybody to, run workshops there, run any kind of event that you want to show, like any exhibitions or drop-in events, just to share your learning around that and just how we can address it. Yeah, establish a permanent venue and hopefully make it one of, if not the hub for learning around climate action. Next slide, please. And youth engagement as well. We've already heard from Marvina earlier about how to engage young people in climate action. You know, what are they? It'd be good to share this out with any youth networks or colleagues you have from young communities about, you know, what are the barriers? What are the key ways we can engage young people? You know, what would they like to see to address climate change and make it a positive future for them? So yeah, we've seen the contact details from Angel House earlier in the chat. So yeah, if you can help out with that, then please do get in touch. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so obviously Tony's mentioned briefly the community hubs. We do already have 4 established community hubs across Leeds, and as Tony mentioned, we're setting up another 4. But as well as that, obviously you can get involved in your local community hub, and we're more than happy to kind of send some more information about where they're based and how to get involved. But we do have, as Tony mentioned, mini grants pots where we can kind of support people to set up their own pop-up hubs, do their own local events. So just please get in touch if you're interested in getting involved in the community hubs. Transition partners, so obviously we heard from Pete earlier as our nature partner. We do have 6 other transition partners, so each of those are just getting started building up their networks based on their thematic areas. So they're going to be planning more engagement events. There are some events this week which you could get involved with, but obviously they are going to be doing ongoing events over the next 4 years. So if you've got a specific interest in, for example, food, energy, nature, whatever that might be, please do get involved in those networks and get in touch. We'd love to have you involved, and yeah, that'd be amazing.
And yeah, we've got a training program planned for the future. You know, with lots of different training courses on how we tackle the climate emergency. A lot of different ways we can use our own values and principles to take it on. You know, we'd like as many people as possible to attend. You know, share your own learning, share your own expertise, and just helps all out and make it a collective effort with training and bringing all our values and principles together into one place.
Okay, great. So I think, do you know what? I can't believe it. We're actually on time. That's extraordinary. Okay, so
in which case, can I just say the one thing I forgot to say?
Oh, go on then, Tony.
We've got a communities hub event as part of the program this week on Wednesday, which is for not just for the 4 existing hubs, not just for the people from the 4 new areas, which are Armley, Little London, Alwoodley and Horsforth, but for anybody who's doing work in communities, and especially anybody who's not just in a hub, but who's thinking of starting climate action in their local community. So look at the website. It's on Wednesday, starting at 4 o'clock with a drop-in and then a workshop.
Great, thanks, Tony. Well, I've just put a, I can see someone else has put another note about the launch and the website. So that's fantastic. Now,
sorry, can I just come in? Because
on,
I'm really sorry, but when it was mentioned earlier that I'm not the chair of SEAC, I meant to mention, and I didn't, that my brilliant colleague, as you all know, Councillor Neil Walshaw from Headingley, he is the chair, and they kind of keep an eye on me and on what we're all doing. So it would be inappropriate if I was the chair of my own kind of like scrutiny kind of function. But yeah, he's in the call on the call today, and they're just doing some brilliant work. So huge thanks to him.
Great.
Andy, I just also wanted to do a shout out to Leeds Tidal and their amazing support for the transition partners, and especially bringing in the Racial Justice Network will be acting as the programme's climate justice partner. So that's really exciting. So I know Pablo's on the call and maybe some other people involved in Tidal. So big shout out to Tidal and the support they're giving them on the movement building and climate justice stuff, which is absolutely fantastic.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and we really want to acknowledge everyone's support and efforts. Okay, so first of all, thank you all for showing up. I'm supposed to be summing up now, and I really just don't quite know how. I'm supposed to sort of comment on what's been in the chat. How can I? There's like thousands of things there. It's been really quite such a vibrant evening with so many comments. Marvina, are you wanting to come in?
Yeah, very, very, very quickly. Wanted to actually give a big shout out to Leeds Climate Action, actually, for the work that they've been doing to make sure that young people's voices are the centre from the time the funding came, and looking at the social justice angle. They've been really working so hard to implement all of this, but we need everybody's help to make sure that young people's voices are there and incorporated. So big shout out to Climate Action Leeds, our Future Leeds, for all their hard work, and Leeds Title, definitely, for some of the amazing work. Well done to the whole team. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, and if anyone out there can help with more support to bring more young people in, that would be fantastic. Do get in touch with us. So, okay, I'm going to sum up in the last 2 minutes. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for making your time available. As Paul said, it's an emergency. We are the first responders. We need to work together. Climate Action Leeds is working to ensure that we can work together in our communities, in different sectors and different themes, and right across the city in different ways. We need your support and engagement to help make that happen. But equally, we want to support and engage with you and your work. We recognise there are many different things happening in the city, and that really it's about, as Tony says, building a movement, building a network, and connecting up all the different action that's happening. So it's not just about Climate Action Leeds, it's about the citizens of Leeds working with the council, with business, with civil society to really make a difference, so that we can rise to the challenge together. We very much hope we can see you at some of the other events this week. And in particular, if you can join us for the Spanish marches in Chapeltown on Saturday, that would be absolutely fantastic. It would be so good to see some of you in person. So thank you all, much appreciated, much more to come. Huge appreciation to the lottery and to everyone that's been working so hard on this project. Yeah, we can do this together. Create a zero carbon, nature friendly, socially just Leeds by the 2030s. Okay, thank you.